welcome back to another amazing episode of Sports Talk with Dad. We have crazy NFL games, we have the NBA, we have soccer, and we even have the best and worst Scrooge of all time. But before we get into any of that, as always, my name is Kyle, and I cannot call this Sports Talk with Dad without the man sitting next to me, a man who was once Scrooge himself, my dad, Tim.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
A few days early, but the kids are going to get to see their first white Christmas.
Yes, here's the issue. Okay, my kids have never seen a white Christmas. We spent the first few years of their lives in Florida, and then when we came back to Wisconsin, there was no white Christmas. It always snowed after. So I wished, I want the kids to have a white Christmas. That sounds amazing. I did not expect 4 feet of snow 2 days before Christmas.
Santa gave you your wish. If the forecasters for once are true, because they're predicting Snowzilla.
There's a big storm coming, man.
I heard 12 to 24 inches where we live.
At least.
We're going to be, don't say at least. That would be a nightmare. They're saying it's the biggest storm since the blizzard of 78, which I lived through. And I grew up in a little small town. House was on 406 West Burn Street in Portage. There was snow piled up to the base of the front porch window.
We're going to get there this year.
No, that was insane.
Listen, the Farmer's Almanac called for a lot of snow this year, and we're about to get a lot of snow.
We're going to be going, to keep on top of it, you're going to have to be out there every couple hours trying to
at least
get rid of the snow.
At least. I've already warned the kids, we're going to be shoveling throughout the night.
Just pray it's not wet, heavy.
It will be, because it's supposed to be a rain-snow mix to start.
Oh, that just means there'll be ice on the road.
So there's going to be ice on the road.
Yes.
Luckily, it is supposed to all clear by Friday night. So hopefully Saturday, when we're supposed to have our travel plans for the holidays, everything's pretty clear at that point.
Except that it's supposed to get ungodly cold.
It is going to be negative degrees without wind chill for Christmas Day.
I didn't move back for this.
We moved back in a polar vortex. So, I'd rather have this than that nastiness.
The Siberian Express.
It's coming our way.
Which,
it is
by the way,
coming our way.
I think it's kind of funny in one way. We talked about it last week a little bit. Your cousin's coming up from Memphis for the Packer-Detroit game on January 8th or whatever it is. That may be flexed to the night game that night.
Packers went out. It is being flexed.
Ooh, I'm sorry. There's no way I would want to be in. I wanted to go to Lambeau in January anyways. I really want to go to Lambeau for a night game.
No.
Those guys last night, and granted, they're in their 20s. They're in the peak of health. They were playing the wide receivers and the running backs. None of them had long sleeve thermal underwear on underneath.
At least they're running around and have heaters next to them, unlike the fans in the stands who weren't wearing shirts.
Well, those are just moronic, drunken Packer fans.
It's crazy. It's crazy. By the way,
yes, sir.
Looking over at your side of the table here, I hope you're prepared for what's coming on the 26th.
Fast as fast can be, you'll never catch me.
You are going on a diet with me after Christmas.
I put on a little weight.
Well, I'm not worried about your weight. I'm worried about you eating healthy. You have been going to the chiropractor to try and make your back better.
Trying to
doing the best you can.
Got a massage.
We're going to start hitting the gym more once you get clearance by your doctors to actually go to the gym.
Yep.
But we have to start eating better. And you are turning into a gingerbread Little Debbie Christmas tree monster.
The Little Debbie, I eat a couple things this time of year. The Little Debbie Christmas tree snack cakes are incredible and off the charts. Archway cookies come out with little gingerbread men. They're great in coffee. And then, of course, I make Grandma Carney's Hermits.
Yes, and
year.
I've destroyed those already. I'm with you on Before Christmas. The issue is you say that like I'm not doing a bad thing. I'm only eating a couple things. Yeah. But you eat boxes of those couple things.
No.
Boxes. I could wrap all my Christmas presents with the boxes that you empty of Christmas cakes.
He's exaggerating.
Little bit. I'm just warning you. You're not quitting sugar like I am. That's a me thing.
If I quit sugar, would nobody be able to?
But we are going on more of a higher protein diet. Try and build up some muscle for you around your back.
That just means I'm going to walk into the house and all I'm going to smell is tuna again.
You're going to eat more tuna. It's going to be more ground beef, ground turkey, no mayonnaise.
I don't eat mayonnaise.
No mayo or Miracle Whip, whatever incarnation you like of that disgusting sauce or whatever it is. I love
tuna salad with the sauce my mom used to make with Miracle Whip and mustard and a lot of sugar and milk and pepper. Yeah.
Which defeats the entire purpose of eating a high protein diet, because that is at that point a high fat diet, which we are trying to avoid. It is.
Why do I have to go through this just because you're going through it?
We are building up your back muscles. We have a plan in place.
Are we here to talk about sports?
We are, but I'm holding you accountable on the show because the doctors, you and I had a conversation about a plan to make sure you can walk in 4 years.
I'm doing planks. I'm doing my bird dog.
We need more protein in your diet. Doctor said you need more protein in your diet to build the muscle. You're not going to do the exercise I am. You're not going to go as nuts with it as I am. But we need more protein in your diet, which means less of those little cookies.
Until next year.
Next year is off. I don't diet during December. What's the point in dieting in December? Unless you're Mr. Olympia, which just ended. But even now, they're enjoying Christmas cookies.
I would think.
Because it's over. And those people didn't eat or drink water for 3 days.
In fairness, I have no idea how I'm not a diabetic with the amount of sugar I eat.
High metabolism.
Maybe. It has to be. Because I live on sugar, which I know I shouldn't. But
it hasn't affected you, but we need to build up more muscle, which means you are moving to a higher protein diet. I'm just warning you, the day after Christmas, you are going on a higher protein diet. You promised. You said it on this show. You're going to change the diet. It's out there now. We're moving to a higher protein diet starting December 26th.
Doing this show from a remote location. In other words, calling it in.
With a giant thing of ice cream. Just eating what you want.
Let's get back to sports.
Which part do you want to talk about? Because I know one thing I want to talk about, and that is Lionel Messi officially getting his World Cup in Qatar in penalty kicks. Just an amazing way to end the tournament.
Okay.
I take it you're not a fan.
I did see that Argentina beat France.
Argentina beat France. It was an amazing match. France coming back in the last few minutes of regulation to go into extra time, and then ending in penalty kicks in the most exciting way you could ever end a World Cup.
It is exciting. It's all the crap that goes on beforehand when nobody scores, and it's just like back and forth and back. Let's kick the little ball around.
I'm with you. I'm just saying it was an amazing ending.
And the women's soccer team in America is unbelievably good. I love watching them, actually.
They're outstanding.
It's just,
but you're like me. You're like a lot of Americans. Once USA's out of it, we quit paying attention.
Right.
Because nobody in America really cares about soccer. We just care about the United States winning.
I did get into an argument with a guy who I met through work. And he was going on about how the United States would never be good in soccer and this blah, 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 blah. I said, look, if the baseball players and the football players and the hockey players and the basketball players stop playing those sports, the rest of the world wouldn't touch us in soccer.
I agree. I mean, you put LeBron James in a soccer field.
Yeah.
It's a whole new world.
You're not going to break into song with that? Thank you.
It's a whole new world. Where's Jimmy Garoppolo when you need him?
Far away. He has to listen to that. Anyways.
Hey, he's on his magic carpet ride. He is Aladdin.
So, did you watch the New England-Vegas game this weekend?
Yeah. You mean the worst play that's ever happened in history? If you did not watch it, number one, go watch it.
Oh.
But it's a tie ball game, 24-24.
End of the game.
They run a play. It's just a run. Makes sense. If he breaks it, you win. If not, you go to overtime. Running back season opening to the right, laterals it to the wide receiver. No big deal. Probably should have just went down.
Should've.
But then the wide receiver all of a sudden doesn't understand situational football and decides it's lateral play.
Has no discipline.
Throws it across the field, just lobs it up. One of the worst throws you could have made in that situation. Interception. Mac Jones makes the single worst tackle in the history of tackling. And Raiders win. No time left on the clock.
The guy walked home because I'm sure Belichick didn't let him on the plane.
I doubt it.
Or if he did, he's been cut.
What's going on in the Patriots organization? Because this is not the Patriot way. When's the last time we've ever seen a situation where the Patriots don't understand situational football?
It's the most undisciplined team I've ever seen under Belichick.
And I don't know what it is. Because you haven't really changed much of the staff. Matt Patricia's back. He's calling offense instead of defense now. But other than that, your staff is pretty much the same as it's been for a while. Where's Belichick on this one? The man who used to light up Tom Brady all the time. I think what you're seeing is that Tom Brady made a much bigger difference on that team than anybody ever gives him credit for.
Look, it's the same argument you and I have had for years. Was it Lombardi or was it Starr? Right. In the case of those two, I think it was a combination of the two.
It was Lombardi.
No, Starr was...
One gets remembered.
Yeah, and in this case, it's going to be Brady.
Although if Brady keeps playing the way he's playing, what's he going to be remembered for?
Brady has, at the end of his career,
he should have walked away.
He should have walked away last year.
Oh, bad.
He's going to
3 interceptions, 2 fumbles.
And yet, there are teams lining up to bring him in next year.
Well, I'm sure because he sells tickets.
Sells tickets, and they're just hoping to grab that lightning in the bottle one more time. Vegas wants to bring him in desperately for next year.
Yeah, of course they do, because we're learning Derek Carr is not the answer.
No. Devontae Adams has learned.
Yeah.
The same lesson that everyone learns. But it was the only game I can ever compare that New England Vegas game to was the Green Bay Seattle game in the NFC Championship game when Brandon Bostic made the bonehead of all bonehead plays. Coach tells him, don't touch the ball. And Brandon Bostic's head, he heard, go up and try to touch the ball.
Got excited in the situation, saw an opportunity to be a hero. Jordy Nelson sitting back there waiting for the ball. Bounces off.
Cost the
Packers
Super
lose.
Bowl. Yeah.
I still believe to this day the Packers go on and win that Super Bowl.
Well, we can believe all we want. We're never going to find out thanks to Brandon Bostic. Brandon Bostic.
Well, one of my all-time favorite players of all time blew a coverage on a fake field goal.
Who's that?
A.J. Hawk.
Happens.
It does.
Still,
overtime, and
we were still up in that game. I'll never forget it.
Seattle had a 5% chance of winning.
And it came true, which is why they play the game, as they say. But the New England-Vegas game, it was the most bizarre ending I have seen in a long, long time.
It's definitely the end of a Patriots dynasty for sure. Like it's officially over.
If you're
these teams are not going to win anything. You are about to see you may be seeing a fall of the Patriots that goes back to before Drew Bledsoe came to town.
So if you're Belichick, do you walk away at this point?
I think it's about time, or he goes and coaches someplace else for a little bit.
I don't think he's in his 70s. I don't think he's going to coach anywhere else.
Still younger than Pete Carroll, who's still coaching.
Let me ask you this. Would you bring Bill Belichick into Green Bay?
Yeah.
All day long.
In 2 seconds flat.
All day long. I don't think...
I mean, you got to deal with this kid with the mullet, which doesn't sound like fun, but people in Green Bay would love it.
Look, we've had this argument. I honestly think it may be time for LaFleur to go if they can get a top-line Sean Payton, Bill Belichick type coach.
We'll see. LaFleur's made some bonehead calls. I agree with you there. The defense has been miserable, which is sad because you have a really good defense. You have a defense that should be top 5, and for some reason the Packers keep playing zone, which I don't understand. You have the best corner in the game. And if they play zone against the Vikings,
they're going. Well, what happened?
I'm going to blow my brains out.
What happened the first time? Jefferson's going to have another 1,000-yard game.
Right. They got to get past Miami. They got to get past Minnesota, and then they have to get past Detroit. That is not an easy way to end the season.
And they're playing Miami on a very short week. Monday night, they have to then go and play on Sunday. Miami Miami's had a long break.
The only thing with the Packers that they have to hold their heads up right now is that Miami's been trending in the wrong direction, and Minnesota's been trending in the wrong direction. Now, Minnesota had the greatest comeback of all time, but I think that has more to do with the Colts than it does to do with the Vikings.
I think so, too. Green Bay is going to have to step it up. They're playing the best football of the season, obviously.
Right.
Rodgers is healthy. He is trusting his wide receivers. Dobbs and Watson are clearly coming into their own.
Watson needed one touchdown, and I win my playoff matchup in fantasy.
Greatest line of the weekend, by the way. It was Rodgers after the game last night.
You want to score touchdowns? Better run the right routes.
Exactly.
Yeah, he better, because he cost me my playoff fantasy win.
And cost a lot of people a lot of money last night.
It did. It was the over-under on the total points of the game. It would have swung.
And he would have walked in.
He would have. He would have. But what about Baker Mayfield? If I'm a Rams fan, I'm starting to understand that Baker Mayfield is the future of my franchise.
Stafford's going to retire. He signs a one-day contract with Detroit, I think, and retires a Lion, as he should. But Mayfield has found a home with the Rams at this point.
He has. He's been looking really good. I mean, last night the team didn't look great in general.
Here's a problem the Rams are going to have.
But the offensive line more let Baker down last night than Baker letting the Rams down.
They're in cap hell for the next 2 years. So they're not going to be able to make a lot of moves. So what kind of a team are they going to be able to put around?
They don't have a first-round draft pick for the 7th year
Correct.
in a row. I mean, they sold their soul for a Super Bowl, which, hey, I mean, good for you. You won a Super Bowl. That's the whole point of it all. But yeah, cap hell's coming. They're going to have to pay the piper. I mean, if I'm the Rams, I'm just paying it all up next year and calling it a day, and then building the team from there. You don't have a first-round pick. You're going to be bad.
And Green Bay, they've got moves they can make.
They need to, if Rodgers is going to come back, you need to do something about his cap hit.
You're going to have to do something about his cap hit. That can be done.
Sure.
You do a sign-in bonus again. Bakhtiari, I think, is gone.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to pay a $29 million salary to a guy who's been on the field for less than half the games this year.
He's done. His career's done.
Sad. Oh, somebody will pick him up next year.
Maybe.
But I think the offensive line, I tell you what, the offensive line coach in Green Bay is the coach of the year.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
2 years in a row. 2 years in a row. I mean, I'm hoping the Packers win a Super Bowl. Rodgers can ride off into the sunset, and Packers can start to move on to Jordan Love. Just eat the cap hit that's going to be nasty next year, and then move on to the future.
They've got a lot of talent on offense. I think you pay Jones. So you've got Jones and Dillon still there.
They never pay a third-year contract.
A third contract.
A third contract, yeah. The Packers don't. And anytime they have, they've been burned, at least on offensive linemen. But they were burned by not doing it with Devontae Adams. Special or not linemen, but receivers, corners. They're different.
Correct. And Jones is healthy. Could he get an ACL blown out? Sure. Anytime he should.
Shut your mouth.
I don't want it to happen, obviously, but you've got probably the best backfield or pair of runners I've seen in the NFL for a long time.
I agree. Things are starting to shape up. The Eagles are still looking pretty tough. You have the Cowboys, who I told you to pick the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Whoa. I said, let's take the Jaguars. We're below in the pool anyways. Jaguars are going to win. And you made me go with Dallas.
You can change history all you want. People on the show have seen several times when I've been in love with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that's not true.
Talk about a coach making a difference. And Urban Meyer is looking just awful.
Yeah, they're looking great. I mean, this is rookie year for a lot of players.
It's a rookie year for
Trevor Lawrence, for ETN. It's the rookie year for all of them.
Right.
And they're looking really good. They're getting hot. Trevor Lawrence looks everything like a franchise quarterback. Unfortunately, he plays in Jacksonville. I mean, that's a team, if you're going to move, I don't know where they can move. I've been to that stadium. I went to school in Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is not a good place to be where they are. It's not easy to get to. It is on the only way I know how to describe it, if you haven't been on the I-10 pass that crosses with like 17 other interstates, it is the turnaround of death where 17 different interstates combine into one area in one exact spot, and it is the most terrifying thing in the world because you also have to deal with Florida drivers, which is scary in and of itself.
Talk about Wisconsin drivers in snow, Florida drivers on perfect roads.
If you just want to be terrified driving, go to Jacksonville, down by whatever their stadium's called now. What is it, Evermore or whatever it is now?
Not a clue.
Go down. It was Alltel Stadium when I lived there. Yeah. But go down there and try and get onto the interstate to go towards the stadium, and you will know what I'm talking about because it is the worst designed road situation in America, and it is awful. But it's not in a good area. It's just not. Well, Jacksonville's metropolitan is one of the smallest metropolitans in the country. It's the largest city in the country, but the metropolitan is very small.
But they tried it at one time. The suggestion was to play half the games in Orlando, and Orlando was going to build them a new stadium.
Right. But if that's the option, is to not play in your hometown, then you just need to move.
Correct.
They need to look at going to San Antonio or to where's everybody moving now in Texas? Austin.
San Antonio has always been the town in Texas that's been mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, you'd probably build a stadium right in between San Antonio and Austin. There's a lot of space there where you could really build out a complex.
Yeah, it's Texas. There's a lot of space.
Yeah, I'm just saying there's an hour between Austin and San Antonio. Like it's not far. You build it a half an hour of each city. You draw from both sides. It's a perfect place for it, and that's where Jacksonville needs to be at this point. They have a franchise quarterback, and they're still not drawing.
My question is, St. Louis was a decent football town.
It was a very good football town, but the stadium was really bad, and they weren't willing to build a new stadium. That stadium either needed to be renovated or a new stadium, which was the answer. A new stadium needed to be built.
And unlike Milwaukee, who, if they didn't build a stadium, would never see another major league team, right. I think St. Louis might get another shot at having the other city. They might. The other city I've heard mentioned off and on over the years has been Memphis. I don't know if Memphis
didn't support the Oilers when they were there.
Sure. They've got the Grizzlies, obviously.
They had a chance with an NFL team, and they just need to play there for a couple of years. And Memphis was like, well, they're not going to stay here, so we're just not going to go to the games. To the point where they ended up moving to a college stadium in Nashville, Vanderbilt. That's right, for a couple of years while the stadium was being built because nobody in Memphis went to NFL games. Memphis doesn't stand a chance of getting an NFL team.
Well, and here's the other. Mexico City has been rumored for a team. I don't see that happening. I don't see Vancouver or Toronto, which is always mentioned.
Nope.
So
you're not going to compete with the Bills being that close. It's just not going to work. I think San Antonio makes sense. I think St. Louis makes sense. But Jacksonville Jaguars need to move. It just has to happen.
Like the Tampa Bay Rays, they need to move.
And they will. Or from what we've talked about, just contract.
I have no problem with that.
I mean, I think there's a huge issue with baseball at this point is that there is too much, or not too much. There's too little talent and too many teams. You're just not seeing great teams unless the Dodgers buy everything out. The issue is that the talent is too diluted in baseball.
It is. Miami should go. Tampa should go.
Right. Football, you can make it work because you can get athletes and you can make systems that work around athletes. It's a different game. In baseball, you can either hit the damn ball or you can't.
Right.
There's no in between.
And I can make an argument that Detroit can be contracted.
You can't get rid of Detroit.
Why?
Detroit is one of the original teams in Major League Baseball. It's like getting rid of the Cubs.
The city is dead. Detroit,
the area that they're in is dead. They built the stadium in a terrible spot.
And nobody's going.
Nobody's going.
And
they also haven't had a good team in 10 years. 15 years now. Jeez, how old am I?
I make my point. Anyways, we'll get into baseball after the new year.
We will, but baseball needs to contract. They need to get rid of two teams. They need to get rid of the Rays, and they need to get rid of the Marlins.
And they also need to get rid of the commissioner, but that's another issue.
Yes.
So talk about the changes. I single hire can make.
Yeah.
Hiring Luke Fickell at Wisconsin.
You're welcome.
Yeah, he's no longer a Suckeye. Get rid of that. We're going to get you a Badger one. But talk about the change. All of a sudden, Nick Evers from Oklahoma is transferring in.
He is.
4-star recruit. I don't want to hear a Badger fan say, we've got a 4-star recruit. We had that in Graham Mertz. If you don't have the coach that can get him up to where he needs to be, doesn't matter what you are. And some 4-stars just aren't good at college.
No. It's like college stars that go into the NFL. Sometimes it's the different speed makes a difference, and they just can't keep up.
But Fickell has kept a couple players to stay, even though they went into the portal.
He got some people to decommit from other schools to come back. He has a kid down in Chicago now making a visit, a running back of another 4-star recruit, doing a second visit to Wisconsin.
I saw that on Twitter. He actually had a Badger logo.
He will be.
Motion W was up.
He will be going to Wisconsin. It's great. What Wisconsin fans annoy me with, honestly, is one, Wisconsin fans were pissed that Leonard didn't get the job. I heard it the entire time. I know, but every other stupid Wisconsin fan out there.
I said that he should not get the job.
I'm just saying, your fan base of your team was furious that he didn't get the job. And now Luke Fickell gets the job, and he's getting all these recruits to turn around and start coming back. And now you're talking about how Fickell is a godsend to the program.
I'm
like, really? Way to turn on Leonard before he's even out the door.
I have cheered the moment they got Fickell. I never thought they'd have a chance.
You did.
Yes.
I'm talking about the rest of the Wisconsin fans that live in Madison.
I'm a homer.
Which don't know what the hell's going on the rest of the planet.
I may be a homer, but I'm not an idiot.
I understand. I'm just saying.
And Jim Leonard, God bless him.
Luke Fickell's going to turn that program around, but Wisconsin fans also need to remember that Wisconsin is not going to compete, for the next 4 to 5 years. They'll compete, but they're not going to be in the ranks of Ohio State and Michigan.
They won't be
in the next 4 or 5 years. They're not going to be competing in the college football
until the 4th or 5th.
Look with Jim Harbaugh. What have I always said about college coaches? It takes 5 to 6 years to build a program. Jim Harbaugh, people were calling for his head. All of a sudden, he beats Ohio State in year 5, and now he's the number 2 team in the country coming into his 6th year.
Understood. They'll compete in the West because the West is so weak. And next year, USC and UCLA will not be there, which, by the way, on another topic, could the state of California be any more wackadoodle?
I sent you that just because I wanted you to hear go off on this.
So the state of California is making UCLA pay California Berkeley.
It's the Board of Regents for the University of California.
The state of California. It's every fruit and nut in California is making UCLA pay a school that doesn't compete on a regular basis $2 to $10 million a year.
Hold on.
Just because they're going to the Big Ten.
Again, you're jumping ahead of the story because you're too excited.
Says the guy who jumped ahead the whole last episode.
Yeah, I'm just as bad. But if I call you out for it, then it takes the pressure off of me.
I got it.
So UCLA had to get approved by the Board of Regents for the University of California in the same way Michigan State or Michigan would, or the same way Oklahoma did by Oklahoma State because it's a state school. So the Board of Regents had to approve UCLA going to the Big Ten, and UCLA was approved under the condition that on their Big Ten TV contract, they have to give $2 to $10 million a year to University of California, Berkeley, Cal, to help them build their sports program because UCLA leaving the Pac-12 is going to hurt their TV contract now. And so you have to give us money because you were given an opportunity to go to another conference.
Socialism at its finest. Okay, what happens when Cal goes, the Pac-12 or Pac-10 or whatever they are, and the Big 12 combine?
Yeah.
That's going to be a better contract for Cal. Are they going to have to give any of that money back to UCLA?
It's just one way.
No, it's just one way because that's what socialists do. They take from people and give it to who they want to be. They choose the winners every time.
I think socialism is a strong word.
It's as
I think that a lot of people throw around socialism not understanding what socialism is.
I understand
on both sides, by the way.
I understand it, and that's exactly what it is. You take from one, you give to the other, and you choose the winners. Sorry. I'll stop because I can feel my blood pressure going high. Unfreaking believable. So let's make UCLA put them at a competitive disadvantage when they're going to the Big Ten.
To be fair, they're about to get $50 million when their TV contract before was 15.
They should have an extra $2 to $10 million to help build their program because they've got to compete against UCLA or USC.
They're busy paying for Cal's athletic program now.
To those people at Cal, go and make your own program better. Don't look for money.
They're going to.
Others.
They're going to make it better now because UCLA is paying for it.
UCLA should not have to pay for it.
But they are.
Yeah, well, of course, because that's what they do in California.
What confuses me with that more than anything is that the same thing has happened with Oklahoma, right? Oklahoma went to the SEC.
Yes, but they don't.
It was approved right away. Oklahoma State didn't ask. Both state schools didn't say you have to give us part of your TV contract.
That's because Oklahoma isn't filled with idiots.
USC wasn't made to do that.
Well, USC, though, is a private college. It's not part of the California State College. And I don't know what Oklahoma is either. Oklahoma State may have had to get approval from the Board of Regents in Oklahoma. I don't know if Oklahoma did.
That I don't know.
I don't know.
That I haven't dug into it. It was just the best thing I could think of. But it would be like Michigan State, though, because those both are state schools.
Correct.
Where it would have to get approval. And it would be like Michigan State leaving and Michigan saying, well, you have to give me a part of your TV contract. It's a weird thing to say you have to do.
It's just stupid.
They're two separate universities.
It is
now, Wisconsin, speaking of, and Ohio State in the same way, they do have to share the wealth of the university with the other University of Wisconsin and Ohio schools.
Different animal.
But that's more for academic. There's no stipulation saying, hey, you have to pay for our sports programs, which is exactly what this stipulation is.
And make no mistake, in the case of Wisconsin, for example, football drives everything.
I mean, that's the same thing with every university,
sure.
Unless you're Duke in North Carolina.
Which is why I still predict that the Power 5 conferences, whatever they end up being, will break off on their own and away from the NCAA at some point.
I'm sure, and I'm sure basketball will stay with the NCAA.
Correct, because they don't make as much money. And why isn't the basketball team being? Well, that's right. Yeah, the basketball team.
It's the whole university.
Just
it's the whole university, but it's based off the TV contract they get. Because don't forget, it's the Big Ten TV contract, which covers all sports. Football's the driver, but the Big Ten contract does cover swimming. It covers basketball. It covers volleyball. It covers everything.
I know you. Have you ever heard me say how much I hate California? How stupid they are?
I have, and I'm real. This is why I sent him the article. Was specifically for this.
And we have viewers in California. And if you are a viewer, please put your comments below and like and subscribe because you didn't say that.
Don't forget to like and subscribe or follow the directions down below and like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get to enjoy the show as much as we enjoy making it and as much as I love a good old-fashioned dad rant.
Oh, my God. So those of you in California that are watching, can you make sense of this for me? Because I can't figure it out because I think it's just moronic and California fruit and nuts.
You feel better now? It's Christmas.
It is Christmas.
Father, it is Christmas. It is the time for caring and sharing. And that's what they're doing. They're caring
stealing.
and sharing.
They're stealing from somebody to give it to somebody else.
They're Robin Hood. Rob from the rich, give to the poor.
And choose your winners because that's what socialists do. Anyways, so Bucks are the number one team in the NBA.
They are the number one team in the NBA. They're looking really good. Giannis is having another MVP season.
He is. Chris Middleton's playing.
He's not back yet.
Not back to
but
where he will.
Here's the thing, though. This is all just positioning. Nobody cares about the NBA until Christmas Day.
Correct.
One, Christmas Day NBA games are the best basketball games to watch.
Oh, they're great.
The uniforms are always amazing. They're either really ugly or really cool, but they're amazing nonetheless.
Sure.
You get to see the best teams and best players play against each other because you do not sit people on Christmas Day. And so you really get to see them battle it out. But the season doesn't start until then. Like, this is all preseason positioning. Are there teams that are out of it now? Kind of.
Maybe.
But we're not even halfway through the season.
It's like the NHL, which doesn't begin until their January 1 game.
Right, the Frozen Classic.
Correct, which is always cool, and it's going to be in Fenway Park this year.
That's cool.
Which will be very cool. But I love the NBA. It's great basketball. We're fortunate.
Fenway Park, by the way, before we get into the basketball thing, Fenway Park and Wrigley Field always confuse me. Because they're the oldest stadiums, right, in baseball. Fenway's older than Wrigley by a few years. Wrigley was 1914 it was built. Fenway was built, I don't know
they're close to each other.
They're close, but I know Fenway's older by a few years.
Okay.
Lambeau was built in 1957, right? And
Correct.
wasn't built well. Citi Field was not built well. It was just built to be a stadium. It was a city park.
The only thing
they turned into a football field.
Well, let's face it. The only thing about Lambeau that still exists from the original is the field itself.
The field itself. The field itself positions in the same place. But my question to you is, and what I have questions for the Cubs and for the Red Sox, because Lambeau Field is it's not 100 years yet, but it will be a landmark at some point, and really already is. Like, it's not going anywhere. But the renovations done on Lambeau have been amazing because it doesn't feel like I don't even know what is it, 70, almost 75 years old at this point. I think it's 57, so in 27 it'll be 70 years old. Sure. So almost 70 years old. But it feels like a brand new stadium. The renovations they've done to upkeep it, they're about to put in new what's the things they're doing? We heard about the stock meeting, the scoreboards.
The new scoreboards.
They're putting in new giant scoreboards to keep it up to date, and they've done a lot to renovate that. Fenway, I can't speak for Fenway because I've never been to Fenway, but from people I know that have, say it's a dump, and Wrigley is a dump. Like, it's still a dump. They renovated it, and it's still a dump.
Here's the problem. I think Fenway is on the National Register of Historic Places.
It is. So is Wrigley.
That makes it very hard to do. If I'm Lambeau, I never, ever want to be on that because it makes doing any remodeling very hard because you have to get permission to do anything.
Is that what it really is?
Yeah. Yeah. If you've got
then I leave the stadium.
If you're like some of the homes that I'm familiar with that are historic homes.
Yeah, there's a couple of them in the Milwaukee area.
Yeah, you can't really do anything without getting approval from the city and, in some cases, national federal government. So I don't want to be on that list. Now, Fenway, they could get done what they have to.
I just don't understand why you don't update it. And again, I can only really speak for Wrigley because I've been there, but they did a huge renovation. They really did. Now Wrigley is very landlocked.
Sure. So
you can't expand the stadium at all. You have places behind you. But it's still not a good stadium to walk around in. Like, it looks like 100 and feels like 100-year-old stadium. Do you feel history when you go onto the field? Yeah, but that's a different story. The stadium itself is not great. And Fenway, from everything I've heard, is the same way. So if you have stadiums like Lambeau that are just as old that can really get updated and really do a good job with updating it,
I think that's the
why aren't you doing the same thing with Fenway and Wrigley?
I think it's because of the National Register.
I guess. Is Soldier Field that way then too?
Yes.
Because Soldier Field's a dump.
It is. Well, it's going away, fortunately for the Bears.
Right. Well, again, the Red Sox are never going to leave Fenway. The Cubs are now never going to leave Wrigley Field.
Not now, but
I would.
They should have when they had the chance.
It's about the fan experience. And honestly, Fenway is the most expensive ballpark in Major League Baseball, and Wrigley's not far behind it now. Wrigley used to be cheap. I used to go there for, I'd go there 10 times a year and go and sit in the bleachers for $20 for general admission. You'd go with me half the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was okay being a dump then, because if I'm going to go and sit in a dump, at least I'm going to go and sit someplace that's cheap. Now it's $100 for these general admission tickets. And why am I paying that to go and really not have a good fan experience?
Look, we didn't have the show then, but I was one of the people saying, move to Arlington Heights, get the hell out of downtown.
Oh, I was too. I mean, I love Wrigley. I love Wrigleyville, but that stadium needs a lot of updating. And it's just, again, not the fan experience for Wrigley is outside of Wrigley Field.
Can we stop chasing squirrels now and get back to what we were actually planning on talking about?
No.
Because we said we aren't going to talk about baseball.
I know, but I got off on a tangent. I'm sorry. Okay. Back to, I don't even know what we were talking about.
We were talking about the Bucks and the Christmas Day games.
Yes, Christmas Day games. Sorry.
We're coming into the best part of the NBA season.
This is when it gets competitive.
I can't wait to go and see a Bucks game.
Yes.
It'll be great.
Yep.
Bucks, by the way, please approve our press passes.
Talk about it nonstop for the rest of our lives, I promise.
Yeah, exactly. Going on to golf, because the PNC Championship was last week.
Yeah.
So much fun to watch.
It was.
John Daly is having knee surgery the Wednesday before Christmas.
Okay.
So his warm-up was no drives.
Yeah.
No irons.
Yeah.
No putts.
Yeah.
Walked out and hit it. And
that's all he did anyways.
Yeah.
Like, if we're being honest, he doesn't warm up. He just goes and hits the ball.
He made a very interesting comparison, though, because he was using a cart.
Yep.
And he has gotten an exemption for some tournaments to use a cart.
Correct.
And he said it makes it harder to play good golf with a cart.
Really? You sent me this article. I'm gonna be. I didn't read it. I didn't get time to read it before the show.
He said the reason is because if you're driving in a cart, you get in, you're still angry, and you get to your next ball, and the anger or the euphoria out of a great shot is still there. When you're walking, you have a chance to recollect your thoughts, focus on the next shot, and plus you're focusing just on the game, and you're not driving a cart around.
Right. I'm assuming you get a better feel for the terrain as well.
I would think, yeah. So we talked about last episode, Tiger asking to use a cart. I don't think it would help him as much, but I do it for Tiger, except at the majors.
Yeah, I would too. But speaking of majors, did you hear the new Masters rules?
No.
Live golfers are going to be allowed to play in the Masters.
I did not hear that.
Yeah,
is that part of that court case?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just got announced yesterday.
They're going to have to do something. I know there are a lot of players in Live Golf that are calling for Norman to step down so that there can be peace between the two organizations and work something out.
I think two separate organizations is great for golf. I've said that from the word go. I think competition is good. Now, golf has its own competition within golf, but having two different organizations, it's like having Big Ten versus SEC.
Or AFL versus the NFL.
Right. You have your own NFC. Or AFL versus NFL. I forgot how old you are. I wasn't alive.
No, you weren't even a
before the
glimmer
merger.
in the eye.
I was alive for the NFC Central, at least.
Yeah.
I was there for that for a couple of years. Anyway, so I think competition in internally and then externally is good for golf. Now, Live Tournament has to change how they play. You can't have them
54 holes is never going to get you ready for a major.
It's not, and you're only playing 8 tournaments a year for a lot of these guys. Where the PGA golfers are grinding, you're never going to see a Live golfer coming up place in these tournaments.
I don't see it, and none of them have done well in the majors.
They've
done okay, but they haven't.
There's been some top 10 finishes, but it was when they first left to the Live tournament. It's been a year now since a lot of these guys have left, and now, especially coming into the Masters, you're really going to see how much not playing that extra day affects you when you have to play 4 days.
So if they're letting Live golf players play at the Masters, are they going to let Phil? Is he going to be invited back?
He's going to have to be. He's a former champion.
Will he be welcomed back?
No, but it doesn't mean he won't be there.
Yeah. Brett
Favre wasn't welcome back to Lambeau when he played for the Vikings. He still showed up.
Yes, he did. Look, I'm a PGA Tour guy.
Sure, I
think it's the better of the two. I do think Norman needs to go because he is that boil that's just hanging on and causing the friction between the two. I think there's middle ground that can be reached.
But the friction between the two to start was good. It's what caused a lot of players to leave.
But Norman is he's a raw nerve. He's got his own agenda. I guess is my point. He's got his own agenda. Nobody knows what it is. He wants to stick it to the PGA Tour.
The Saudis know what it is, which is why they put him in charge.
Sure. And that's the other big problem I have with the Live Tour. You want to start your own tour, fine. Don't go to somebody who's laundering money. Which is, it's what the Saudis are not good people.
We probably shouldn't have a team in Vegas.
They're human
if
rights.
We're worried about things being built by laundering money.
Las Vegas isn't. There's nothing wrong.
I mean,
it's just good.
I get what you're saying,
honest gambling. There's no
now.
Bugsy Siegel was a good guy.
Sure.
He was just misunderstood.
Yeah, the name Bugsy really, makes him feel like a cuddly little bunny rabbit.
Yeah, exactly. All the gangster movies like Goodfellas or whoever was building Vegas. Anyways,
Casino.
That was it. Human rights violations in Saudi are something that's going to have to be dealt with before it can be brought in.
Not our problem.
It is if Live and PGA Tour are going to merge at some point or are going to coexist.
Sure. No, if they're going to coexist. I mean, they're companies from two different countries.
Something's going to have to change.
Like, I get it. I don't like it either, but I live in the U.S. Like,
so do I.
I got to worry about what's happening here.
So do I.
I'm not worried about what's happening in Saudi.
Their tournaments are over here.
Their tournaments are, and they added some more this year.
They did.
But they are allowed in the Masters now, and that makes a big difference. Now, again, Tiger's not going to be able to ride a cart in the Masters. They're never going to allow it.
I don't think he can walk 72 holes.
But I don't think he can walk 72 holes, no.
Because he was I watched the PNC. I love it. It's one of my favorite silly season tournaments.
Well, because it's not silly. It's major winners who get to play with their kids.
They call everything from like the end of from in November and December,
right, as
the silly season in golf. But it was fun to see Tiger play with Charlie.
It was.
Tiger let Charlie speak to the reporters for the first time. Yep. He's getting them ready.
Yep.
Because that kid is going to be good.
Yeah, and he's getting a lot of his bad shots out in front of a bunch of people out of the way, which is good. He's getting a lot of exposure right now, which is going to be good for him as he grows.
And this was a tournament where his ankle was sprained.
Yeah, and Tiger told him, walk it off.
Exactly. And he learned how to play with it for the day.
He did.
But something else Tiger said. I sent it to you last night. I don't know if you saw it or not.
No, because you send things to me at 2 a.m.
It was 1:45. Don't push.
Okay. Call me a liar for...
Yeah, make you a liar for 15 minutes? Absolutely, all day long. But he said something that was interesting. He apparently told Charlie, look, I'm not your buddy. I never will be your friend. And people are giving him a hard time about that. And
parents aren't friends to their kids.
No.
Like, you and I are friends now, but I'm an adult.
Correct.
The relationship changes.
And I'm still dad, though.
You're still dad.
And you're
still dad.
The respect is earned. And yes, our relationship has grown, and I think Tiger's and Charlie's will, but Charlie will always call Tiger dad. And
right.
That
it's
kind
still
of respect
dad.
Be there.
I never understand that with parents where they're like, I'm friends with my kids. Well, then you're not parenting.
No.
I'm not friends to my kids. I'm a parent to my kids. Now, I love my kids. I love being around my kids.
But you need to give them direction.
But they're kids in the same way you do to me to this day. It's direction in a lot of ways. I mean, I don't understand parents that are like that.
I haven't either.
It boggles. We have friends that Grayson hangs out with, their kids, and it doesn't make sense to me. It's like you're not parenting your kids.
We had friends like that too, and I never understood it because you've got to teach the kids. You've got to show them what's right and what's wrong, and if they make a mistake, you can't just say, "Oh, it's okay, buddy." Treat them like a friend. No, you correct it.
Well, a parent relationship is something very special and something very unique, and you need to take that seriously.
But Tiger was getting a lot of heat for it, and
people are stupid. It's a loud minority
in California, I'm sure.
You gotta find a way.
Anyways, okay. So it is the week before Christmas.
It is. Week of Christmas, technically.
Week of Christmas. And if I did anything right in my life, I raised you knowing the greatest book about Christmas ever written was A Christmas Carol.
It's not a Christmas story. It's a ghost story based around Christmas time.
It's a Christmas story.
Okay, Charles Dickens said himself it wasn't a Christmas story.
Yeah, well, he might have wrote it. Doesn't mean he's right.
My interpretation is correct, not the author's.
Right. But in any case, there have been a ton of movies made about Christmas. Some people could argue It's a Wonderful Life is a version of A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, it's the original story of life changing as time goes on.
What do we always talk about on this show? It's a story of redemption.
Right.
And There have been some good versions of A Christmas Carol. There have been
great
some
versions.
really, really not great.
Yes.
The ones where they made it a musical with Kelsey Grammer singing was not a good version of A Christmas Carol.
That was really bad.
It was really bad. Albert Finney's some people love it. I'm not one of them.
Not a fan.
So
yes, I used to read A Christmas Carol 3 times a year. I read it once a year now.
I do too.
That's all I really can make time to do. But I make sure I go through it. I talk about it with the kids. They know I love it. The greatest Christmas gift to this day I have ever been given. I know people don't know this, but I'm a huge Batman fan. Not that anybody could tell.
If they've watched the show. If they've watched the show more than 2 seconds, they see you put Batman in my great-grandparents' frame.
You're welcome. And I'm a huge Christmas Carol fan. So my wife, it was our second Christmas together, and she found a graphic novel that was Batman's version of A Christmas Carol. It's really well done. The book's not great if you read it, but for me, it was such an amazing gift because it's like she just found 2 things that I love for a Christmas gift, and it was our second Christmas. I knew that Christmas I'm going to be with this woman for the rest of my life. So that was the moment I knew I was going to marry that girl.
I'm biased because I think I was actually in a play. You can see the sign.
You were Ebeneezer Scrooge.
I was Scrooge.
There you are. Right there.
Your mother said it was typecasting, but
it's because you were old.
No, it's because we were divorced.
Well,
anyways,
fair.
So I think we'll post a picture of me in A Christmas Carol with your brother who played the young Ebeneezer Scrooge.
You played Fred.
He played Fred. Oh yeah. He also played the young Ebeneezer Scrooge.
He did. He had 2 parts.
He had 2 parts. It was a small community play.
You're good though. You were good.
It was the greatest thing I ever did. It was the hardest work I've ever done in my life. It was hard.
And you learned the lesson of the show must go on.
Yeah, because I got hiccups one night.
You did. I was there for that show.
2 hours before, and I got rid of them right before the show started. And then right as we're looking over Tiny Tim's dead body, the damn things came back.
I internally laughed really hard.
Everybody laughed really hard because at one point I'm as giddy as a drunken man. And everybody thought that was really funny. That was unbelievable. But anyways.
You did good. It was your first play, and you get to play Ebeneezer Scrooge.
Yeah.
That was impressive. It took me several plays to get a lead. I hate you. No, sorry. You did really, really good. It was very impressive, but you knew the story so well.
I did. I actually I could write a master's thesis on A Christmas Carol.
Definitely.
Because I've written it. As a matter of fact, I gave all you guys a copy of A Christmas Carol one year for Christmas.
Now let's put in, I'm going to say what my stipulations are.
Okay, go ahead.
To A Christmas Carol, to A Great Christmas Carol, because there are very specific stipulations that make A Christmas Carol great and make A Christmas Carol bad. And the biggest stipulation is that you don't rely on people knowing the story to tell it for you.
I agree with that.
The worst Christmas carols I've ever seen are the ones that take advantage of the fact that everybody already knows the story.
Which they don't.
They don't know the full details of it. And what I mean by that is there are versions, and the Irish version is one of them, which completely bypasses the transformation. They go so dark with it that they want to make Scrooge look like this horrible human being, but they make him so despicable that there's no way you could ever like that character as he transforms into somebody better. They make him so unforgivable as a villain and focus so much on the dark parts that you don't allow him to transform. And then there's other ones, the Patrick Stewart version. I know you love it.
No, I don't.
But the Patrick Stewart
one line.
Yes, but it also relies on the fact in a lot of ways that people already knew the story. They really bypass how, in that case, they tried to make Scrooge too lovable because it was Patrick Stewart and bypassed a lot of what made him not a great person and why people didn't care or like him at all.
I was disappointed in the Patrick Stewart version. I expected a lot. I thought it'd be perfect. I thought he'd be great in it. And it was okay. I think he had the best Bob Cratchit in that version.
He's a very good Bob Cratchit in that version. And we will get into that.
We'll get into that in a second. But my problem with that one is a couple things. For one thing, he's slurping his gruel and it makes it hard to watch. I can't stand people chewing with their mouth open. But then he also said to Bob, he goes, do that again, at the scene where he says, you'll lose your job instead of you'll lose your situation.
Yes.
Don't try to rewrite a classic.
No.
Go with the authorship was pretty good. Just use the script.
Yeah, to the point of talking about a dead as a doornail and not understanding why that is the most dead ironmongery.
Yeah.
Because it should be a coffin nail.
Exactly.
It's one of my favorite things
I love that. Because it's just like he obsesses over this and he's got to explain it, and I love it.
Another stipulation is Marley.
Gotta have a Marley.
A lot of Christmas carols do Marley bad. And Marley sets up the whole thing. That's when the story starts, is when Marley comes into play.
Correct.
And a lot of Christmas carols miss that very important detail.
And there's one other detail that is necessary for a great version of a Christmas Carol, and I only have seen one. It happened one time. Tiny Tim is a very, very, very sick little boy.
Extremely sick. And you're right, only one Christmas Carol got that. So let's go into the best Tiny Tim.
1984, George C. Scott version.
It is the only Tiny Tim that makes any sense out of any of them.
That kid looked ill.
He looked like he was going to die.
Yeah.
And then transformed into more of a healthy kid towards the end, when after Scrooge was what essentially was a year later.
Correct.
Which a lot of people also don't realize, like that end part where Scrooge is carrying around Tiny Tim, that's like years later.
That's after he's had the surgery and he's been saved.
I don't know if they would have had surgery back then.
Well, that's what he needed to have done.
I mean, you can show me in the book where it says any of that. He was just a very weak kid because he was weak at birth.
He got the doctor's help he needed. Is that better?
Thank you.
All right. So
probably went on a higher protein diet.
If we went for the top 5.
Yes. Top 5 Tiny Tims. I mean, number 1 is the George C. Scott. Number 2 is the Alistair Sims version, Tiny Tim. It was a very good Tiny Tim. Very cheery, which I liked a lot. Didn't look as sickly, but black and white, different.
Yeah, the 1998 Patrick Stewart Tiny Tim was okay. The Disney Christmas Carol Tiny Tim
with Jim Carrey.
Yes. Was also very good.
You know, one of my all-time favorite Tiny Tims.
Would that be Robin?
Robin from A Muppet Christmas Carol.
Christmas Carol.
You know me too well.
Yeah.
You know me too well. Far too well. It's great. And let's get into the thick of it here, because I think this is where you and I are going to argue. I wanted to make the point of the Tiny Tim, because Tiny Tim, if you're going to do him, you got to make him look sick.
Correct.
Now, Scrooge.
Okay.
Your answer is going to be different than mine, and I think my answer is going to surprise a lot of people.
Okay. I think the quintessential Scrooge remains Alistair Sims.
Alistair Sims is one of my all-time favorite, and always had been my favorite Scrooge.
The one that my other favorite Scrooge is actually not a movie or a TV show. It's Lionel Barrymore in the Campbell's Playhouse.
If you have not read or listened to the 1938 Campbell's Playhouse, it's free online. You can find it. Lionel Barrymore, who, if you don't know who he is, he played Mr. Potter in It's a Wonderful Life.
He kind of played Scrooge once.
He did. He was supposed to be Scrooge in the 1938 version, but he broke his hip.
So they got Reginald Owen, who was...
It was okay. He had a weird haircut. Don't watch that in color, by the way.
No.
It's really bad in color.
Watch it black and white.
But just listen to it. Lionel Barrymore is great. You have Orson Welles is narrating. It is amazing. You want to go back in time to 1938, listening to the radio and listening to a radio story and just feel like you're there. Oh, that I agree with you. It's good. My all-time favorite Scrooge is Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey is, people give him a hard time, but that thing was the most loyal to the book.
It was, in my opinion, that is the greatest Christmas Carol ever made. They threw some extra stuff in for 3D with him with the Ghost of Christmas Future. They extended that a little bit more than they maybe needed to, but it is exciting and it is for kids. And so you got to keep that in mind. But he was absolutely unbelievable. He was great in all the parts he got to play. I mean, he played all the ghosts.
My one problem with
maybe not the Ghost of Christmas Future, but he didn't talk.
No, but the Ghost of Christmas Present, he sounded like Paul McCartney.
Of course he did.
Do not even go down the bunny
He sounded
track.
like more like the real Paul McCartney, not necessarily fall, but he did sound like the real Paul McCartney. Wait till you look under the Christmas tree this year.
Anyways, if you do, get rid of it now. Get rid of it now. Paul McCartney is not dead. There is no fall. Anyways.
Fake Paul still.
I don't know why it bugs me so much.
Either,
but it does.
But I love it.
Anyways, one of my favorite versions.
Yeah.
That's underrated and people don't watch it is An American Christmas Carol.
Oh, with Henry Winkler?
With Henry Winkler.
That was really good.
It was a complete remake.
It was what it you have to watch it for what it is though. The reason people don't like it is because they refuse to watch it for its own individual story.
Correct. I mean,
it's not a Christmas Carol.
It's not. Well,
it's a Christmas Carol in the same way Scrooge is a Christmas Carol.
Correct.
It's its own take on it.
It's its own take. It's a completely separate deal, but they did it very well. It was a TV movie. Excuse me, in 1979.
Yeah, it was really good. I like that one a lot.
There wasn't ways to make Henry Winkler. The makeup job wasn't done as well as it could have been.
I mean, the budget wasn't there.
Correct.
The way that it could have been.
But
It's a different take. But again, it's a story.
Take.
And again, what makes Henry Winkler great in that is that he is unlikable in the beginning, but not so unlikable that you can't see a transformation. And you see that transformation throughout. Alistair Sims was great. Alistair Sims' version, the 1951 Christmas Carol, which is the version
it's still
you should watch. I mean, it is the best version.
It's another one you watch in black and white. Not in color.
Don't watch in color. I don't even think you can find it in color. And if you can, it should be burned.
It should.
Black and white. It is the best version. I'm not going to argue with you on that one.
I blame Ted Turner
now,
for that.
I will put the Jim Carrey version and the Alistair Sims version side by side. Well, because they even make a nod to the Alistair Sim version and the Jim Carrey one towards the end. But what makes the Alistair Sim version so amazing is the beginning story of Scrooge. Nobody's done it that way before, where you make him subtly unlikable, but they added a scene in there at the restaurant, which is in the book.
It's not in the book.
It's not in the book.
It's not in the book. I looked it up because I wanted to make sure.
Then I don't know what I'm thinking about. I saw it in the book.
It's still, it drives home.
But he's in the restaurant. For those of you who haven't seen it, spoiler alert, but it's been out since 1951, so I don't really care. If you haven't seen it by now, it's not my fault. But in 1950 or in the 1951 version, he goes to a restaurant and sits down and asks the waiter for more bread, and the waiter tells him that's fine, it'll be an extra cost, and then he goes, no more bread.
To show how cheap he was.
Right. And then he does that before he goes home. And you know why I get confused in the book? Because it does mention that he goes to a restaurant before he goes home in the book.
Yeah.
So him going to a restaurant is in the book. That scene's not in the book. Fair.
But still, and Sims goes home, a great Marley. He's a great Marley.
Great Marley.
He shows up on the door. He's the most melancholy of all of them. A lot of the Marleys are angry.
Well, and they add in the scene where you act, which a lot of this is why the Marley scene is so important. This is what everybody misses. Only a couple of them actually show it, where he goes to the window and sees the homeless woman with her baby sitting out in the cold on Christmas Eve. And you see all the ghosts that have chains that are in this purgatory for their sins on earth of not giving enough and are trying to throw coins at this woman to give her money and make up for the mistakes they made because they see the error of their ways and they can't help. And their torture is trying to help this woman and they can't.
And my first thought is, Scrooge, give her some money for God's sakes, but he hasn't had the redemption yet.
He doesn't really know what's going on. He doesn't believe it's happened yet.
Right.
That is such an important part of the Christmas Carol that every version leaves out. Because it shows, listen, this is your path. You're going to be here. It shows Scrooge what he's going to be and the regrets he's going to have to live for the rest of eternity.
Which is why it is so good. Scrooge, Bill Murray is a great Scrooge.
That was a really well done movie. It's the greatest ghost of Christmas present of all time.
Carol Kane is hysterical in this movie. I mean, my God.
She makes the movie. I mean, we can talk about Bill Murray.
Oh,
it is Carol Kane that makes the movie.
Without a doubt. She is the highlight of it. Oh, the bitch hit me with a toaster. It was just so good.
I will tell you the greatest Ghost of Christmas Past is also Alistair Sim, because it is, in the book, it's described as a person you can't tell if they're old or young, man or woman, and they do that very well in the Alistair Sim version.
He's an old guy.
An old guy with an effeminate voice who has long hair and some wrinkles on his face.
There's only
it's a great adaptation.
And there's only a couple versions that have Scrooge putting the light that Ghost of Christmas Past was bringing. George C. Scott's version being the absolute best at that.
That is the best.
George C. Scott is probably my second favorite version of it.
George C. Scott was really good. I wouldn't say that, but it was really good.
Well, it's between. It used to be, without question, my second favorite. Then Disney came out.
Yeah.
And so
the Jim Carrey version.
Jim Carrey was outstanding with.
I don't know why you name it by the name of the actor that plays Scrooge, but when it comes to the Jim Carrey version, you call it the Disney version. And you can't even call it the Disney version because there are 2 Disney versions. Technically, there's multiple.
Okay.
But
and you know who my next, and not to change, keep going, but I want to keep the thing moving. My other favorite Scrooge is Michael Caine.
Yeah, the other Disney version, the Muppet Christmas Carol.
Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yes.
That's the Muppets. It's not Disney. It's the Muppets.
It is the first movie made, or completed, I should say, because he died in the making of that.
Stop it.
That
the Muppets. It's not Disney.
I know, but
it wasn't Disney.
I need to point this out, that it is the movie that Jim Henson died when making. He died during that. That is the movie that was produced after.
And Michael Caine wanted to do it because
his kids couldn't see. He had young kids, and there was no other movies they could see him in, and so that's why he signed up for it. But he was great. I mean, he made that movie.
Oh yeah, he was outstanding in the movie, and what I loved about it was it's obviously kid friendly.
It is.
But it also is a very true telling of the story.
I cried when I was a kid, actually, at one of the scenes, which is a very sad scene. When the rabbit, I forget the rabbit's name because he was only there for a short while. Mm-hmm. But when he goes up, he's singing the Christmas carols to Scrooge, and Scrooge refuses to help him. And again, adding to the nastiness of Scrooge,
when he had to sleep in a dumpster,
they show him shivering, sleeping in a dumpster, covering in paper. I cried as a kid because it's like, it makes you look at him, and rather than doing the beggar and the dog thing, which actually is also in that version, but it's like, oh, he could have helped this kid find a warm place to stay tonight, and he refused. And as a kid, it even points out right there, like, hey, he could have made a difference,
right? And
lets you know how bad of a person Scrooge is. Now, Michael Caine doesn't compare to the best of the best Scrooges because it's a kid movie.
It's still a Muppet.
His acting would have allowed that, but it didn't go that dark. But for a kid's version of it, especially a Muppet version of it, I thought he did a really great job.
So my other version, I go Alistair Sim.
Alistair Sim's number 1.
George C. Scott.
Incorrect.
Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey's number 2.
Flip or flop, whatever.
No. Muppet Christmas Carol's number 3.
Muppet Christmas Carol would be 3 or 4. Oh, Alistair Sim, and this is my list. Leave me alone.
It's wrong.
It is not wrong. Alistair Sim, George C. Scott, Jim Carrey, Michael Caine, and...
It's not Michael Caine's version. It's a Muppet Christmas Carol.
I'm talking about the Scrooges. And yes, stop. Now you made me forget my number 5. See, I like to, and I'm going to put It's a Wonderful Life just because that is, or it could be, I don't like the 1938 version with Reginald Owen because they cut it so much. Now, there are a lot of people that really like that version, even though they cut it so much. And that Cratchit was pretty good.
Sure.
He was okay in that. What's your list?
It's a tie for me between Alistair Sim and Jim Carrey. I really can't pick one. I do think I like the Alistair Sim version more because I grew up on that, but my kids will go down liking the Jim Carrey version more.
Not until I get them to watch the Alistair Sim.
And the Alistair Sim version is great as well. Don't get me wrong. It was the perfect casting. It was the perfect everything. It was great. But the Jim Carrey version, you want to talk about something that tells the story of the book. They don't miss a thing.
No, they don't. It's spot on from the book. And what I like about it is the makers of that movie, and I think Jim Carrey is a big part of it. Yeah. The book stands on we don't need to rewrite dialogue because it's all there.
Well, and that's where Jim Carrey signed on for it. I've seen interviews with it. He said, listen, we're doing the book. Like, we don't need to rewrite this. And I just thought he was a great Scrooge. I thought I mean, Jim Carrey's a very talented actor and a very talented voice actor, and he was able to sway the difference in the characters with just his voice. I mean, it was brilliantly done. I thought I'd hate it when I heard of the casting, and I was completely wrong. It is right up there with the Alistair Sim version. Muppet Christmas Carol is up there just because it's a great version of the story, especially for kids, and tells the story very well in a kid-friendly way, which is hard to do.
It's very hard to do. It's a dark story.
I mean, you look at with when Scrooge McDuck was introduced in that Disney version, that didn't tell the story very well. It was a very dumbed down kid version, and so for the Muppets Christmas Carol to be able to tell that story the way that they did in a kid friendly way was extremely impressive, because it's Jim Henson, and Jim Henson is a god in my opinion. He's one of my all time favorite people. Then you get into George C. Scott. I have to say George C. Scott, and especially for the Tiny Tim and Cratchit, they were both really good.
And the best Ghost of Christmas Present in my mind, because they let it go where it had to go. He was angry.
Yes.
At the end at Scrooge.
Yes.
And he was sarcastic, and he was drilling it to Scrooge the whole time.
Yes, and the transformation didn't happen until future.
Correct.
The transformation doesn't happen in past. He gets angry at past. He starts to feel empathy, but pushes against it with present, and then gets scared at the end of present, and then transforms after future. That's when that transformation happens. And I think a lot of people try to do, and Muppet Christmas Carol is at fault for this, where the transformation starts at past.
It starts at present.
And it starts at present.
Right.
And then solidifies in future. The past doesn't really, it just makes him upset, because he's been running from it for so long, and now it's been thrown into his face. As you can tell, we could write a master's thesis on A Christmas Carol. We are big fans.
So in the comments, let us know which your favorite version of A Christmas Carol is.
And while you're down there, don't forget to do this right here, which is like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get to enjoy this show as much as we enjoy making it. We do have to also give a special, very special thank you, because next week we are coming up on our year anniversary of this show. And I can tell you, when we started this show, it was just for fun. I did not expect it to grow the way that it has, and we cannot thank you all enough for listening and enjoying this show
and watch
as much as you do.
Because you watch
and watch. I always forget the watch part.
Yeah, but it has been, and you took the words right out of my mouth. Next week will be our 1 year anniversary.
It will.
And it hasn't seemed like it's been a year. It's been a lot of fun. The growth of the show has been great. Big thank you to all of our sponsors who have been with us through the year. And year 2 will be even better.
Year 2 will be a lot of fun. Guaranteed a lot of stuff coming.
And even better.
We have one more episode for the end of the year, which we will get out to you next week. Any last words?
Yeah, I got a big problem with the NFL. They are actually going to have a football game played on Christmas Eve at 8:15. I think the kickoff is 8:30.
Yeah. It's Saturday night game.
I don't give a... It's Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve is one of the most hallowed family nights of the year. NFL, shame on you for putting a game there. Let's not be so secular in this country that we just forget about family.
Games on Christmas Day? You have no problem with games on Christmas Day?
No, because by noontime on Christmas Day, everybody is like, yeah, we've done this. Let's get out of the house and let's enjoy ourselves. I have no problem with that. Christmas Eve, however, is a special time. It's a magic time, and there should be no football game. I don't care if it's on a Saturday night at all. No football starts at Christmas Eve at all. You can play them in the afternoon, fine, but not at 8:30 on Christmas Eve night. Shame on you. I demand you reschedule that game immediately. People that are going to the game, shame on you for going. It's Christmas freaking Eve.
Except for the kids that get to go, that was their Christmas present, and it's really special to them.
Fine, make it special on another time, not on Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve is about memories. And if something's out there to enhance memories of anybody,
it's
then
Christmas
it is a special
freaking Eve.
situation.
It's family time. I care about the guys that are playing. They should be with their families on Christmas Eve, because it's the night Santa comes. It's the holiest night of the year.
People who play on Christmas Day aren't spending Christmas Eve with their family. They're spending it in a hotel before the game starts.
Stop it. No games on Christmas Eve. It's wrong, and it should never happen again. It should not happen now. Wake up, because the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future will haunt you, Roger Goodell. Change the game.
This is a random rant that makes no sense for you. I don't understand this one. The rest of your rants, I at least can be like, okay.
They shouldn't be on Christmas Eve.
But this is a dumb rant.
No,
this is
it's
a
not.
dumb last word.
No, it's not a dumb rant. No game should be played on Christmas Eve.
Then no game should be playing on Christmas Day.
Christmas Day is different. You spend the morning with your kids and your family.
You don't. You're preparing for the game. And if you're a road team, then you're in a hotel the night before. Is Christmas Day important, or is the time you get to spend with your family, no matter what date you get to do it?
No, Christmas Eve.
I think it is
one of the most holidays of the year. I remember.
Listen, here's the difference.
You weren't born yet. The first year your mom and I were married, I worked for a CBA basketball team.
Yes.
I took off like at 2:00 in the afternoon on Christmas Eve. We would live in Rochester, Minnesota. We flew down to have Christmas Eve with my mom and dad. And that night we drove to your mom's mom and dad.
Yes.
I got up and I had to be back in Rochester by 3 in the afternoon. I didn't get any sleep.
Yes.
I was with family on Christmas.
Here's the difference, and here's where I'm going to argue with you here, is that you were never a part of a divorced family. And that's the difference, because I am, and my wife is, and so we have 4 different Christmases to go to, and there is no way to get to 4 different families in 2 days. It's impossible.
No.
So for me, I've grown up, and a lot of people that have been a part of divorced families, it is not so much the day, it is the time you get to spend. Because like when I'm seeing mom is going to be on the 26th, and that's just going to be just as special.
And you saw your mom on Christmas Eve last year. You weren't with me.
Which was also very special.
And it was, and it's
But then the day I got to spend with you was also very special. And our Christmas Day night became our Christmas Eve night with you. And just because the day was different didn't make it any less special.
Christmas Eve is special.
Yes, it is.
All right, then stop it. I win. Thanks for watching. Next week will be our 1-year anniversary show.
It will.
You lose.
Thank you so much for watching. This has been Sports Talk with Dad.
Bye, everybody.